All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the James Nolan podcast. We got a lot to get into today, even though we just went live last night and we discussed a lot of topics. There's more rumors coming out about the NFL season for next year. This offseason is already heating up. Like I said last night, the Stafford rumors have already begun for the New York Giants. They went out there and they hired his brother-in-law as the quarterbacks coach for the 2026 season. Aaron Rodgers, we're going to dive into a little bit more onto why the Jets decided to part ways with Aaron Rodgers. Connor Hughes went on WFAN earlier today on Evan and Tiki, and he gave a very good explanation on why. And of course, we're going to get into more baseball tonight. Starting off with the Mets and analyzing their lineup, going over Francisco Alvarez's comments on the lineup of the New York Mets. He stated yesterday that he believes that the Mets have the best lineup in MLB. And with that, I like the confidence in the kid. He's still only 23 years old. You got to remember that. A lot of people are upset with Francisco Alvarez's comments. Me, not so much. It's not 2007. It's not 2008. This is a new Mets team. They got Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo. Like, we are loaded. Vientos. I can't leave out Mark Vientos with 27 home runs and 110 regular season games. So let's dive right into the Mets lineup. In a little bit, we're going to dive into Yankees lineup and why I think they should go after Nolan Arenado. He's still on that trade block right now. The St. Louis Cardinals do want to ship him. Nolan Arenado wants to be on a winning team. I think it's a perfect pairing for an Arenado and the Yankees. But we're going to dive into why I think that should happen. But first, let's get right into Francisco Alvarez's comments. You look at the Mets lineup. You can't really say that Francisco Alvarez is completely wrong. Obviously, he's going to be biased since he is in this lineup. But when you take a look at it, Francisco Lindor, this is hypotheticals. Carlos Mendoza did come out today and say that Francisco Lindor will indeed lead off. So that's some more breaking news for the Mets. Soto, I have a feeling he will be batting second. You want that guy to get an extra 30 to 40 at-bats. That happens on a good team when you're a two-hole hitter on a very good team. So Juan Soto and Lindor, they need to have the most at-bats on this team. Pete Alonso, this is where I'm hyped for Pete Alonso to bat third, right in front of Mark Vientos. A lot of people want to put Mark Vientos at number 3. Here's why I'd put Alonso in the 3-hole. Alonso, the Rico Bronya podcast, Evan Roberts, he had a really good deep dive into the players that have hit behind Pete Alonso through his entire career. It's been 10 plus each and every year. Guys like J.D. Davis, guys like, Jeff McNeil. He's not a 5-hole hitter. He's not somebody who's going to protect Pete Alonso. As great as Jeff McNeil was in 2022 when he won the batting title, as great as he was in the second half after the All-Star break where he had a 289 average and over a 920 OPS, actually the second highest OPS on the Mets in the second half. Guys like McNeil, J.D. Davis at one point, we can go on and on. Daniel Vogelback, Darren Ruff. We can go on and on with the guys that have hit behind Pete Alonso in his 6-year career with the Mets. He's never had consistency from someone hidden behind him. So now, you have a guy in Mark Vientos. That's why I'd hit him right behind Alonso in the cleanup spot. And Vientos would still get protection too. The reason I would put Vientos right above Nimmo is I want Vientos to get that protection. I want him to get that protection. I get it, 2 right-handers hitting back-to-back isn't great in today's MLB, but at the same time, if Lindor and Soto get on base, right? Let's say Lindor, who has a very likely chance of getting on base, especially in the leadoff spot. He had the best stretch of his career hitting leadoff with the Mets in 108 games, had 26 home runs, 70 RBIs. He tore it up. So that's why, obviously, Lindor is going to be the leadoff hitter. But Soto, like I said before, you want him to get those extra 20 to 30, maybe even 40 at-bats, depending on how good this Mets team is this year. And then, like I said, I want Vientos protecting Alonso consistently. Having Mark Vientos protect Pete Alonso, I think, would be huge. And then hidden in front of Soto, who gets on base 42% of the time. If you have Lindor on base 1, you have to pitch fastballs to Soto because he's a threat to steal second. So Soto will see more fastballs. And let's say Soto gets on. Obviously he's not a threat to steal a base, but you don't want to walk Pete Alonso. You want to throw him strikes. You're going to go after him because Mark Vientos is hidden right behind him. And Mark Vientos, we all know what he can do. He took it personal in the NLDS against the Philadelphia Phillies when they walked Francisco Lindor to have the bases loaded come up for Mark Vientos. And what did he do? He had a grand slam to put the Mets put the Mets up. So, good luck to any opposing pitcher against this lineup. So Francisco Alvarez, I don't think he's completely right that the Mets have the best lineup in the game. I still think that's the Los Angeles Dodgers. But I mean, the Mets, they're right up there. Their front five is amazing. No pun intended there. But Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Vientos, Nimmo, those are all guys. I mean, let's just go over the home runs. Lindor, he hit 30-plus home runs in back-to-back years. Soto, he hit 41 home runs. That was also with the short porch at Yankee Stadium. I don't think he's going to hit 40-plus home runs. I'm not saying he can't, but I would say Soto is probably going to be in the range of 33 to 38 home runs. Alonso, I have a hard time seeing him not hit 40 home runs, hitting behind a guy like Juan Soto. Mark Vientos, I mean, he hit 27 home runs in 110 regular season games, so it's really not a hot take to say Mark Vientos can hit 30-plus home runs in a full regular season. Brandon Nimmo, he had a career high with 24 home runs last year. We've seen his power numbers increase consistently over the past few years. So I think Brandon Nimmo can have another 20-plus home run season. At his best, I could see him hitting 25-plus, but I'll probably cap him out right around 22 to 24 home runs. So right there, that's three guys in your lineup in the front five that are going to hit potentially 30-plus. One guy in Alonso who's going to hit 40-plus, and Nimmo who's going to hit 20-plus. And then the wild card there, I was talking about him as the wild card, is I'd probably go Winker above Alvarez in this lineup, just because, having that. But then again, if Nimmo's hitting fifth, I do want that right-hander hidden behind him. But the reason I could see Winker hidden behind Nimmo is because Winker's not going to be facing left-handers. So you would have a right-hander pitching against that lineup. You have to face Nimmo and Jesse Winker, who both kill right-handers. So I would actually put Winker above Alvarez in this lineup. But if they do want to go righty-lefty, 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 like a lot of teams do nowadays, you probably want to break it up with Francisco Alvarez batting sixth and Jesse Winker batting seventh. But, all in all, this lineup is great. And Francisco Alvarez, I just mentioned, he's the wild card in that lineup because Francisco Alvarez hit 25 home runs in his rookie year just 2 years ago. He played through an injury last year. We all know he struggled, and he does need to step it up to start the year. I am going to be the first. I have been one of the main guys in this Mets podcast world saying Francisco Alvarez needs to get going because we can't have him have less than a 300 on base percentage. We can't have him hitting the low 200s. In this lineup, if Francisco Alvarez is hitting 240 plus, even with an on base percentage of like 320 plus, nothing too spectacular. And if he hits 25 to 30 home runs, if he lives up to his potential, like at one point, this was the number one prospect in baseball. Just in 2022, he was the number one prospect in baseball. That's 3 years removed from that. The kid's only 23 years old. If Alvarez can just kind of not even live up to the full potential that we all think he can have, if he just lives up to half of it, he can be a main X factor in that bottom half of the order. And then you go to Winker, Jeff McNeil, Tyrone Taylor / Jose Siri, getting that platoon role in center field. Obviously Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri are not here for their offense. They're here for their defense. Both of them are spectacular defenders out there in center field with a ton of range, great arms. We saw Tyrone Taylor save the Mets in the playoffs a bunch of times last year with his defensive abilities. But McNeil, just like Alvarez, McNeil hit 289 with over a 920 OPS after the All-Star break last year. He had the second highest OPS on the Mets after the All-Star break. The only one ahead of him was Francisco Lindor, who finished second in NL MVP voting. Now, I get it. It was after the All-Star break, but when you look at his season overall, when you look at the way he changed his approach, he was hitting more line drives. When he hits line drives, I know it's, you hit line drives, obviously you have a much better chance at getting a hit. When he hit line drives in the second half of last year, he had over a 500 batting average. The shift did affect Jeff McNeil. Like the shift did affect some players, and one of the players that it affected the most was Jeff McNeil. He was great at slapping the ball in those holes. You want to shift him, play some more guys on the right-hand side, he can slap it down the left field line. He can't do that anymore because the shift has been banned. So McNeil had to change his approach. He just had to. Since 2023 started, he had to change his approach, and he did in the second half. He switched from a knobless bat that we all know he had a bunch of success with the knobless bat, and he started swinging with a knob bat. And one of the funny things, Eric Chavez, the Mets hitting coach, it's common sense, I feel like, to go out there and tell your players, try to swing the bat a little bit harder just because you're going to hit the ball harder, right? That's just common sense. It's common knowledge. Well, Jeff McNeil was actually told by Eric Chavez and the Mets coaching staff to be that 300 hitter, to be that slap hitter. Instead, they said, you know what, something's got to change. Just start swinging a little bit harder. Swing as hard as you can and hit the ball hard. And once he started using that approach, he started to just play better. I mean, a 289 batting average over 920 OPS. That was arguably the best stretch of his career, and that's counting the year he won the 2022 NL batting title when he hit over 320. So am I expecting McNeil to be a 320, 330 hitter anymore? No, but if he can be a 285 plus, a 850 plus OPS guy, that's huge in the bottom of the order. And now let's say McNeil has a slow start, because I made a post on Twitter that got a lot of Mets fans riled up just last week saying Jeff McNeil is going to be the opening day second baseman. He is going to get that opportunity because of the contract, because of his pedigree. Like, he is going, and he deserves that opportunity to start. But at the same time, if McNeil is struggling through the first month of the season, I have a hard time seeing David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza getting together and saying it's time for Luisangel Acuna. And Luisangel Acuna, we all know that I love him. I love Luisangel Acuna. He's fast. I've always said he is the most athletic player in the entire Mets organization. He's just that athletic. His swing is a lot like his brother's. He's got a quick swing. It goes right through the zone. He doesn't strike out a lot. He gets on base a lot. And obviously, when he gets on base, he's a threat to steal second and potentially third with his speed. I mean, the guy had over 50 stolen bases just 2 years ago in the minor leagues. He's a threat. So I love Acuna. I don't want to rush him. He's only 22 years old. That's why I want to give McNeil that shot, because we are trying to win a World Series. Last year was fun in games. There was a great story with the Grimace, Seymour Wiener, a lot of memes with the Mets last year. This year, it's about kicking ass. It's going out there and winning baseball games. The Mets have expectations. And that said, I don't want to throw Luisangel Acuna in this lineup on opening day and have sky-high expectations for this team and sky-high expectations for a 22-year-old kid. I just don't. I think it's a lot of pressure to put on him. And we also saw, whether you want to disagree or agree with the Mets for, bringing Mark Vientos up and then putting him down, bringing Mark Vientos up and putting him down. Mark Vientos was pissed last year when they signed JD Martinez. He thought he was going into opening day as the opening day DH. And obviously, signing JD Martinez prevented that from happening. What happened? They gave Brett Baty the shot at third base. Brett Baty sucked. They called up Mark Vientos. He hits a nice home run to give the Mets a game-winning home run, and he gets sent down the next day. I believe he had multiple home runs in that game too. And then he got sent down the next day. He was even more pissed. And then when he finally got that opportunity to be the opening day the everyday third baseman, he took it and he ran with it. 27 home runs in 110 regular season games. Amazing in the postseason. Arguably the second best, maybe even the best if he did make the World Series. Maybe he'd have a little bit more, home runs than Giancarlo Stanton did. But Stanton was the undoubtable, in my opinion, all-around postseason MVP. Vientos, NL-wise, he was the best postseason player. He was the best postseason player. He had over 320 batting average. He had over a 999 OPS. He had 4 clutch home runs, multiple RBIs. This guy was insane in the postseason. So, and I also have confidence in Mark Vientos to do that again, to have another great year in the regular season, because he adjusted. We see all the pitchers did adjust to him, and they adjusted to him in the playoffs. They have a good scouting report in the postseason, no matter if you're a rookie or if you're an 8-year veteran. They are going to have a scouting report, and they're going to be prepared. And they tried to pitch him differently, and he made the adjustment too. Baseball is all about adjustments, and Mark Vientos showed us that he can adjust. So that's why I'm confident in Mark Vientos to have a 30-plus home run season, considering he hit 27 home runs in just 110 games last year. I don't think that was a fluke. So he showed us that he has stones, and I think Acuna, just giving him that shot opening day, it could prevent that, that little chip on his shoulder where he wants to prove, the Mets front office wrong for not letting him start the year in the bigs. And like I said before, McNeil, just with the pedigree of his career, with the second half he had last year, with the contract he has earned that opportunity to be the everyday second baseman to start the year. And if it's really a win-win situation. Because we saw last year, David Stearns is not afraid to get rid of guys. He probably wouldn't get rid of McNeil. McNeil would probably be used on the bench. But he's not afraid to get rid of guys if they are struggling. He's not. Like, let's say Griffin Cannon sucks. He'll be gone. He won't be on the team in June. So, I'm not opposed to giving Jeff McNeil that opportunity. So just take a look at this lineup one more time. I mean, it is loaded top to number 5. And then obviously Alvarez, that potential X factor, if he hits 240 plus, 25, 30 home runs, which we know he can do. He has the ability to do it. He's just got to be more consistent. That's huge. Jesse Winker and Starlin Marte. I love that platoon. Starlin Marte hit over 300 last year against left-handed pitching. Jesse Winker is not going to hit against lefties, obviously. He's here to hit against righties. He has over a 300 batting average. With runners in scoring position last year, he hit over 300, had over a 900 OPS with runners in scoring position. So, I like that idea. Now let's talk about Pete Alonso a little bit more, since we haven't really talked about him too much since he did re-sign with the Mets. One, that contract, I love it. 2-year deal, basically a 1-year deal, because even if he has the year he had last year, he's going to opt out because he wants a longer term deal. But this is perfect for Alonso. I don't think it's going to be as much pressure as he had on him last year in a contract year. And it's really just one down year. I mean, you look at Willy Adames' numbers compared to Pete Alonso's numbers last year. Pete Alonso arguably had a better year than Willy Adames, who got a 7-year deal with the Giants. So Alonso, big whoop. He had one bad year. His one bad year, he had 34 home runs and had 88 RBIs. In 3 out of 5 of his full seasons, not counting 2020, he had over 40 home runs and had over 115 RBIs. Throughout his entire career, through his first 5 seasons, with runners in scoring position, he had over an 850 OPS each year. So I'm not worried about Pete Alonso, having another down year. And like I said on last night's pod, everybody's worried about his body. He's a big guy. That's not going to translate. He's only 30 years old. He hasn't even had a single at-bat in his 30s. He's not old. And 2, like I said before, outside of last year with runners in scoring position, he's been clutch. He's arguably been our clutchest hitter in the lineup with runners in scoring position outside of last year. So I'm confident in Alonso to turn it around, especially if he's hidden right behind Juan Soto. Probably one of the best, if not the best, left-handed hitter in all of baseball. So that's why I'm confident in Pete Alonso. And obviously that bottom of the order, you need Alvarez and you need McNeil to produce. And if McNeil doesn't produce, then you got Acuna. I don't think Ronnie Mauricio is going to even sniff a major league at bat this year. And I hate to say that, but Mauricio's bat really doesn't make sense to me in this lineup. And here's why. He strikes out a lot. Look at his minor league numbers. He strikes out a ton. Does he have insane pop? Yes, but he strikes out a ton. We have Brandon Nimmo, who, even though he gets on base at a high clip, he still strikes out a lot. Pete Alonso, we already know he strikes out a lot. Francisco Alvarez, he strikes out a lot. We don't need another guy who has a lot of pop and strikes out a lot in this lineup. We need a guy like Luis Angel Acuna, who has the ability to steal like 30 plus bases, who has the ability to hit for a high average, to get on base a lot. And we already know he's a great second baseman, and he can play shortstop, and he can play third base, and potentially center field. So I don't think we're going to see Mauricio, especially coming off a torn ACL. He's not even going to be ready for the start of the year. I believe he's going to be starting spring training in I want to say mid-March, which is basically the end of spring training. So I don't think we're going to see Mauricio at all this year. And I hate to say that, but it's just true. All right, now let's talk about this rotation. Let's do a little bit of a deep dive into the rotation. Mets already said today they're going to use a 6-man rotation. Griffin Cannon is not going to be in that 6-man rotation. Carlos Mendoza said he's going to be in the pen. And speaking of the pen, let's say Clay Holmes doesn't do well as a starter. He goes to the bullpen. And that Mets bullpen, you already know how I feel about it. AJ Minter, Ryan Stanek, Reed Garrett, Jose Budo, Edwin Diaz, Daniel Nunez. This is a great bullpen. They have a really good bullpen. Especially if Edwin Diaz is just a shade of himself, a shade of his 2022 self when he was the most dominant closer in baseball. That's another major plus. So, whoa, World Champs 2025. And now I'll react to that real quick because also shout out real quick to you. Thank you, Raul, for watching. The Mets, if they make the World Series, obviously great. I won't be upset at all, obviously. But I won't be upset if the Mets don't make the World Series this year because of the team that the LA Dodgers put together. We also have to be a little realistic. I think the expectation for this team Yes, we do play in a tough division, but you can have that expectation after the offseason they had that they can go out there and win the NL East. And you can have that expectation of they can go back to the NLCS. And I hope we fight better against the LA Dodgers because I think the LA Dodgers will be in the NLCS. But then again, it's baseball. Anything can happen. The Dodgers have had a loaded team for like the past 5 years. They won the World Series in 2020. They won the World Series just last year. But in 21, 22, and 23, how'd that work out for them? It's baseball. Anything can happen, and that's the beauty of this sport. The Mets, even them, they could just fall flat on their faces, but I don't think they will. But they could. But the lineup that they have is just too hard not to expect this team to win 90-plus games, to have another postseason appearance, to make another deep postseason run. Am I going to be pissed if they don't win the World Series? No, but I'm going to be pissed if we're not in the NLCS. I'll tell you that. But yeah, speaking of pitching, like I said before, bullpen's great. Daniel Nunez, Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek, Jose Budo, AJ Minter, who's probably might not start this season. He might not be on the opening day roster, but he's only going to miss the first 2 weeks at most. So I love the addition of AJ Minter. We really need another left-hander in this bullpen, really just a left-hander in this bullpen. And he can also pitch against lefties too. He's not like he's just a left-handed specialist like Jerry Blevins was back in the day for us. He's a dominant reliever at his best. So, and then Edwin Diaz, like I said, if he's a shade of himself in 2022, that's another major plus. And we also can't forget that he missed the entire 2023 year. So yes, was he a little bit shaky in 2024? Yeah. But down the stretch in the postseason, Edwin Diaz was the only guy you wanted coming out of that pen. And Ryan Stanek, of course, who we re-signed. But starting pitching wise, do we have a bona fide stud ace? No, we don't. I was in a conversation with a few friends before. Kodai Senga, I personally think, arguably, he can be an ace. He was top 5 in the National League in ERA. He was top 5 in MLB in K per 9. He had 12 wins, 7 losses, sub 3 ERA, 2.98 to be exact, 202 strikeouts. And that was his first year in majors. Look at his first year compared to a Yamamoto's. When Yamamoto was a lot more hyped up than Kodai Senga was. I'm not saying Senga's going to have a better career than Yamamoto, but what I am saying is you can't like throw disrespect on Kodai Senga's name. When Kodai Senga was healthy in 2023, he was an ace. He was an NL All-Star. He finished 7th in NL Cy Young voting. So he was a top 10 pitcher, not only in the National League, but in the MLB. So if you're a top 10 pitcher, can someone explain to me how you're not an ace? Can someone please explain that to me? When Kodai Senga is healthy, what makes him not an ace? Like, seriously, what makes Kodai Senga not an ace? Now, you can play that hypothetical game. Well, he missed last year, only pitched 5 innings. What if he gets hurt? That's everybody. What if Sean Manaea gets hurt? What if David Peterson gets hurt? Flip to the LA Dodgers. What if Blake Snell gets hurt? What if Tyler Glasnow gets hurt? Like, you cannot just play the hypothetical game. When Kodai Senga is healthy, in my opinion, he's an ace. At the very least, he's an all-star level pitcher. And with this lineup, I don't think you necessarily need an ace. Down the stretch, at the trade deadline, I hope we add a starting pitcher that can be another, top of the rotation starter. But you can just have a bunch of top of the rotation starters and still win. You don't need a bona fide ace. Who was the bona fide ace on the LA Dodgers last year in their postseason run? Who? Wasn't Walker Buehler. Wasn't Jack Flaherty. Yamamoto, by no means was he a bona fide ace at that point. I mean, going on in his career, you expect him to be that, especially a $325 million pitcher. So who was the bona fide ace of the LA Dodgers last year that won the World Series? Please tell me and elaborate why they were a bona fide ace last year. You probably can't. So that's why I'm saying the Mets, even if they don't add a necessarily ace at the deadline, they can still make a deep postseason run. They can still be World Series contenders without a ace, with the lineup they have, especially. Like Kodai Senga, if you don't want to call him a number 1, fine. He's still a top of the rotation guy. Sean Manaea proved last year he's a top of the rotation guy. David Peterson, right now, I'd say he's a perfect number 3. The guy had a 2.90 ERA last year, was 10-3, and in a full 162 game season, if he can just pitch 28 to 30 starts and have like a sub 3.3 ERA, that's another top of the rotation guy. Frankie Montas, I'm not too high on him, but you can't hate him until he sucks. Because Luis Severino, people were clowning the Mets for getting Luis Severino. What did he do? He turned his career around. He resurrected it in 1 year with the Mets with the pitching lab, David Stearns, Jeremy Hefner. So why can't Frankie Montas do that? And until he doesn't do that, then I'm not going to say it was a bad move. Same thing. Same thing with Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes was the best ground ball pitcher in baseball for the last 2 years. And like I said before to start the show, if Clay Holmes is not a good starter, you move him to the pen. And then your bullpen is Clay Holmes, AJ Minter, Edwin Diaz, Daniel Nunez, Jose Budo, Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek. That's a really good bullpen. So, and then you also have Brandon Sproat. Brandon Sproat is regarded as one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. So, keep that in mind. He's 24 years old. I think he will be in the rotation, I would say, by June or July. I think midsummer, we're going to see Brandon Sproat in this rotation. So who's that sixth man? Could it be Tyler McGill? We already know it's not going to be Griffin Cannon. I'm more on the fence of saying Tyler McGill would be a very good bullpen arm. You look at his numbers against the first time through the batting order. He's actually a really good pitcher the first time through the batting order. So I think if you have him in the bullpen, a guy who can probably increase his velocity out of the bullpen, he's a hard throwing pitcher already as a starter. In the bullpen, I think he would be, just the velocity would be even more up. So I do like the idea of McGill in that bullpen. I would say if we're going to go 6-man rotation, I'd say give Brandon Sproat a shot to make that case in spring training and then potentially be on the opening day roster. But, that's obviously the wild card there. That's very unlikely, but you never know. We don't really know who that 6th man is going to be just yet. I would say it's up for grabs with Tyler McGill, Jose Budo, and probably Brandon Sproat, Adrian Hauser. Well, probably not going to get that 6-man spot. We all know what he is. But the Mets have options, and they do want to roll that 6-man rotation, especially with Kodai Senga in it. So I think it would benefit, especially to Clay Holmes. Like, this is his first year as a starter, like full-time starter. He was a starter when he came up in the league, but, we'll see. And that's another thing. Like, everyone's clowning the Mets. Oh, Clay Holmes, you turning a reliever into a starter. That's very, very risky. Seth Lugo was one of the best relievers in baseball for the Mets. He had a top 3 Cy Young finish last year with the Kansas City Royals. Michael King was a reliever for the first few years he was with the Yankees. They gave him an opportunity to start. What did he do? Now, everybody wants to trade for him. And he's probably going to get paid a lot of money if he has another year like he did last year as a starter in the 2026 offseason. So, I like this. I don't love the rotation by any means. I love the top 3 guys, Senga, Manaea, and Peterson. Obviously, Clay Holmes and Frankie Montas are question marks, depending on who that 6th man is. It's still going to be a question mark no matter who it is. But I like their rotation because of how good their lineup is, because of how good their bullpen is. 2 out of 3 parts of this team is very good. I would say elite lineup, a very good bullpen, a very good front 3 in the starting rotation, and then you have the question marks. So let's go over expectations for each guy in this lineup. We kind of went over the expectations. You kind of got my expectations for the starting pitchers. I expect Manaea, Senga, and Peterson to be exactly what they have been when healthy, when they're at their best. But let's go over the lineup and let's take a deep dive into it. Lindor, just projections, just numbers. These are just my projections. This is my opinion. I think Lindor can have another 30-plus home run season. I think, based off him having 70 RBIs out of the leadoff spot last year, I think he could have a 90-plus RBI season. I would say batting average, probably 270-plus. And an OPS of probably, I would say, 875 plus, because he had over a 900 OPS out of that leadoff spot. Juan Soto, like I said before, I don't see him hitting 40-plus home runs, not with that short porch anymore. But then again, Juan Soto is still one of the best, if not the best, left-handed hitter in baseball. He gets on base 42% of the time. So Juan Soto, I'd say OPS-wise, definitely above 950. Batting average-wise, I'd say 280 plus. Home runs, I would say in the range of 33 to 37. Pete Alonso, I'm going 40 plus home runs. I'm going 110 plus RBIs. I'm probably going to go 245 plus batting average. And if he does that, that's great. You don't need him to hit 270 like he did in 2022 or 260 like he did his rookie year. You just need him to hit 40 plus home runs and have a 240 plus batting average. That's all you need. And that's a beautiful thing about Pete Alonso in this lineup. That's all you really need him to do. You just need him to be that home run hidden guy. Mark Vientos, like I said, 27 home runs and 110 regular season games. He made the adjustments when pitchers adjusted to him last year, especially in the postseason. I could see Mark Vientos having a 30-plus home run year. 267 batting average he had last year, so we'll go with like a 260-plus batting average for him. And OPS, I would say above 830. Brandon Nimmo, I mean, it's hard to really project Brandon Nimmo because what Brandon Nimmo are we going to get? Are we going to get the Brandon Nimmo that's swinging for the fences like he did the last 2 years? Or are we going to get the Brandon Nimmo like in 2021, 2022, where he had 270 plus batting average? In 2021, they were 290 batting average. And, the on-base percentage was in the high 300s. So, it depends what Brandon Nimmo we get. I do think him hitting fifth in this lineup, him hitting third in this lineup, wherever he's going to hit. I think Brandon Nimmo could probably go 20-plus home runs. He did hit 24 last year. He hit 23 in 2023. So I could see Brandon Nimmo having another 22-plus home run year, probably a batting average in the range of 270 and 280, somewhere in that range, and an OPS above 800. I mean, this is a guy who had a career 808 OPS. Going into last year, he had over an 830 OPS throughout his career, and he obviously was playing with the plantar fasciitis last year, so that didn't help him too much. So, yeah, I expect Brandon Nimmo to have a bounce-back year. Francisco Alvarez, I would say probably 27 home runs, and that's me being nice. I can say for certain, if he stays healthy, he'll probably hit 20-plus home runs. He hit 25 home runs in his rookie year. Batting average, if he hits 240-plus, similar to Alonso, if he can just hit 240-plus and give us 23, 25-plus home runs, that's a great year out of Francisco Alvarez. That's exactly what we would need in that lineup. Jesse Winker, Starlin Marte, if they can just hit 280-plus platoon situations, I would take that. McNeil, I hope and pray that he can be just a shade of what he was in the second half of last year. And if he is, that's great. If not, like I said, Luis Angel Acuna comes up. So McNeil, I would say probably 285 plus batting average wise. If he can even have an OPS in the high 700s, that'd be great. That's what you want out of McNeil in the bottom of the order. Tyrone Taylor, Jose Siri, I don't expect too much offensively, so it's not even worth it giving them a projection. They're here for their defense, and at some point, I think we do see a Acuna or a Jet Williams or even a Drew Gilbert to start getting some reps out there every day in center field. But yeah, that's my Mets. That's my Mets right there. All right, let's flip it. Let's talk about these Yanks. Let's take a look. The Yankees need to add Nolan Arenado. Obviously he's not what he was, even 2 years ago, but it's either DJ LeMahieu and Oswaldo Cabrera for that last infield spot, or you go out there and you make a trade for Nolan Arenado. Brendan Donovan, I don't think they're going to make that trade. I don't think the Cardinals want to give him up. But last year, Nolan Arenado had a 719 OPS, a 272 batting average. He had 16 home runs and drove in 71 runs. You put Nolan Arenado in the same, similar to what I was saying about Cody Bellinger yesterday. I expect Cody Bellinger to have a year like he did in 2023. Maybe even a little bit better because he's hidden in the same lineup as Aaron Judge. If he pulls the ball a little bit more than he has in the past few years of his career, I think he can have 25, 30 home runs with the Yankees. So Cody Bellinger, I do think, I'm not saying it's an A-plus move, but it was definitely a B-plus move. Devin Williams and Max Fried, those are A-plus moves in my opinion. Max Fried, definitely a risky contract. Giving a 30-year-old an 8-year deal is risky. But at the same time, for 2025, it makes all the sense in the world. But that's why I'm saying go out there and get Nolan Arenado because the Yankees have a window to win a championship right now. I get it. They want to go after a big first baseman next year, whether it's Murakami or whether it's Guerrero Jr. That's why they gave Paul Goldschmidt that 1-year deal because they're going to be heavily in on that first base market next year. But Nolan Arenado doesn't prevent them from doing that next year. He doesn't. So that's why I'd go out there and I'd make that trade for Nolan Arenado, because you look at his numbers last year compared to the projections for DJ LeMahieu or Oswaldo Cabrera, who's like, you look at Oswaldo Cabrera's numbers. Let's take a look at his numbers throughout his career. He's gotten opportunities. Last year, he had 247. 248 last year, actually. But career-wise, he has a 233 batting average. It's not very good. Last year, 661 OPS for Oswaldo Cabrera. You don't want that on a team that's trying to win a World Series. And you look at DJ LeMahieu's numbers from last year, and he did get hurt a lot last year. That's another thing. He's going to be 37 years old in July next year. Well, this year. Played 67 games last year at a negative 1.6 WAR, hit 204 with a 527 OPS. Since 2021, I mean, obviously his best years are behind him. Since 2021, over the past 4 years, he has a 252 batting average, a 698 OPS. I would go with the 34-year-old third baseman, Nolan Arenado, in that lineup. You look at the Yankees lineup with Nolan Arenado, it's much better. Jazz Chisholm, I would probably have leading off. Aaron Judge batting second. Cody Bellinger batting third. I think Bellinger batting right behind Judge. That would be huge. And then you slide Arenado in at number 4. Stanton at number 5. Keep lengthening that lineup a little bit. Goldschmidt hitting 6th. Volpe, I would probably have hitting 7. You could also make the case, have him bat 9th to turn over the lineup. I would probably put Jason Dominguez in the 6th hole, just so you can have another lefty up there. Austin Wells, I could see him hitting the bottom. He's definitely going to be hitting the bottom of the order. And Austin Wells is another candidate to have probably a breakout offensive year. He had a pretty good offensive year last year, especially in the first half. Cooled it down in the second half. But Austin Wells, he's got some potential. And Jason Dominguez, finally getting his shot to be the everyday left fielder. It's about time. But that lineup looks a lot better with Nolan Arenado there rather than DJ LeMahieu hitting in the bottom of the order. Oswaldo Cabrera with a 233 batting average career at the bottom of the order. Like, would you rather DJ LeMahieu? Like, your infield the Yankees infield could be Goldschmidt at first, Jazz at second, Volpe at short, and then third would be Oswaldo or LeMahieu. Whereas you could have Nolan Arenado there, and it completely reshapes the infield. And if we think Cody Bellinger is going to have a bounce back year with Aaron Judge, then why can't Nolan Arenado? So that's my case for why you should bring in Nolan Arenado. It's pretty simple. He's just better than DJ LeMahieu and Oswaldo Cabrera, the current options. He's just better. That's why. And the Yankees have a window. Aaron Judge isn't getting any younger. Garrett Cole isn't getting any younger. You want to win a championship with those two, you really have, I would say, 2-3 more years of a really good Aaron Judge, arguably 1 to 2 more years of a really good Garrett Cole. Because Garrett Cole's getting up there in age. I think he's 35 right now. I'm going to fact check myself real quick. He's 34. 34 years old. He'll be turning 35 next year. Do we expect Garrett Cole to be a Cy Young candidate when he's 36 years old in 2 years? Like, do we? I don't think so. So you have to go all in now. You have Garrett Cole and Max Fried, arguably one of the best, maybe even the best 1-2 punch in a starting rotation in all of MLB. And then your 3 is Louis Heel coming off a Rookie of the Year. Your 4 is Clark Schmidt, and Clark Schmidt is a very reliable starter. And your number 5 is Carlos Rodon, who won 16 games last year. That's an elite rotation. Elite. Your number 5 is a guy who won 16 games. So, Yankees, their plan in 2025, right now, what it looks like is pitching. Because their bullpen is also great. They just added Tyler Matzek, or I think I said that last name right. I always have trouble pronouncing his last name, but Tyler Matzek, last year he had 11 games, led up 11 runs, but before that, he was a sub-4 ERA reliever. And their bullpen is already great as it was before they got him. Bringing back Tim Hill, that was a great deal on it, especially that contract that they gave him. They're paying him less than $2 million a year. Devin Williams, he's the best closer in baseball. No doubt about it. Luke Weaver, down the road, he was the best reliever for the Yankees. Jake Cousins, another great guy out of the bullpen. The Yankees have a loaded bullpen. They have a loaded starting rotation. And right now, I would say, the only guys that they have that can hit over 30 home runs is Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. And that's if Stanton doesn't get hurt in the regular season. And we all know he gets hurt a lot in the regular season. Cody Bellinger, I could say 25 home runs. Paul Goldschmidt ain't hitting 30 home runs. So, realistically, a Jazz, he could probably hit 25 plus. But, it's hard to imagine this Yankees lineup making another World Series appearance with DJ LeMahieu and Oswaldo Cabrera as the everyday infielders. It's just hard to imagine. But let's get into Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe really needs to get going offensively. I get it. He's a Gold Glove defender at short. No doubt about it. One of the best defensive shortstops in MLB. But if you look at Anthony Volpe's numbers, he's never in his, I know it's only 2 years only, but when you're trying to win a World Series, you can't have a guy who has an on-base percentage below 300. A 283 on-base percentage his rookie year, 293 on-base percentage in his this past year in 2024. OPS only 666 and then a 657 in 2024. He actually kind of took a little bit of a step back this year OPS-wise. Batting average rise, it did increase. It went from 209 in 23 to 243 in 24. They need Anthony Volpe to just be consistent. In the playoffs, he was actually relatively good. Had a 286 batting average, 407 on base percentage, 815 OPS, 14 hits in 14 games. If they get that Anthony Volpe in a regular season, that's a major plus for the Yankees. Major plus for the Yankees. So Anthony Volpe, where Francisco Alvarez was my potential X factor for the Mets, my potential X factor for the Yankees is Anthony Volpe. Because we know Anthony Volpe can be a great hitter. He was a great hitter in the minors. He was a great hitter in high school. I believe he had 1 year in college. But when you get that defense out of him, you don't need him to hit like 300 plus. You don't need him to hit 30 plus bombs. This is a kid. In his rookie year, his power numbers were there. His power numbers were there in the regular season. Anthony Volpe had 21 home runs his rookie year. And he also had 24 stolen bases. So if he can, let's say he can hit 18 plus home runs. He can hit, let's say, 270 plus. OPS in the 700s. And he swipes 28 plus bags. He swiped 28 bags last year, 52 through his first 2 years. If you get that Anthony Volpe, that's a major plus in that lineup. That's a guy who you want hitting leadoff. And if Anthony Volpe is at his best and he's hitting leadoff, that's really good for the Yankees. Because then you don't have to count on Jazz Chisholm to hit leadoff. But I think a lot of people are also downplaying Jazz Chisholm in this lineup. Like I said, I don't think he's going to go nuts and hit 30-plus home runs, even though I feel like they need another guy who can hit 30-plus home runs in this lineup. It is lacking a little bit of power outside of Judge and Stanton. But, this is a guy who's got a 757 career OPS. Last year, he hit 24 home runs. He's only 26 years old. 27 now. He actually just turned 27 on February 1st. Going to be playing the entire year at 27. I believe it's a contract year for him, too. So he's going to want to prove himself. No, actually, next year will be a contract year for him. Only 21 games his rookie year. So, yeah, this is big for Jazz Chisholm, This is big. When he got traded to the Yankees, he had a 273 batting average, 825 OPS, a slugging percentage of 500. He had 18 stolen bases. He had 40 total stolen bases. So if you can get a 25, 35 plus season out of him, home run, stolen base wise, that's huge. So I think a lot of people are downplaying the fact that Jazz Chisholm Jr. is still on this team. Right now, he's probably their best offensive infielder. I would say he's probably the fourth best hitter in the lineup third best hitter in the lineup when Stanton's not out there. But, you don't really want Jazz being your number 4 guy in that lineup. Not like cleanup wise, but just your fourth best offensive hitter. Because right now, if I'm ranking offense wise for the Yankees, it's obviously Judge number 1. Then I'd go Bellinger. Then I'd go Stanton. And then I'd go not Volpe, Jazz. So, that's why I also think the Yankees do need to go out there and make a move for a Nolan Arenado. Now, if I was the Yankees, I would just sign Alex Bregman. Because like I said, it's not going to take adding the third baseman is not going to take you out of the first base market next year when you want Murakami or you want Vladdy. It's just not. So if I'm the Yankees, I would just go after Alex Bregman. He turned down a multi-year deal in December. It seems like Scott Boras, obviously, if it's not Juan Soto, Scott Boras is not getting his players a lot of money for a lot of years. He's not. So if Alex Bregman does have to end up taking a short-term deal, let's say a 1 to 3 year deal with opt-outs, why wouldn't the Yankees try to poach him? Why not? Because then Bregman is automatically your second best hitter in the lineup. Right there. He had a great second half last year. Had 17 home runs in the second half last year. Why not? Then your infield is Goldschmidt, Jazz, Volpe, Bregman. Then your lineup could probably be Jazz, Judge, Bregman in the three. I'd probably put Bellinger in the 3 hole still. Bregman hitting cleanup, Stanton hitting behind him. That'd be a really good lineup, man. That'd be a really good lineup. So if Bregman, if he does have to just swallow the pill of a short-term deal, I think the Yankees should go after him. Right now, rumors are leading towards no, that's not going to happen, but you never know. You never know. Maybe Brian Cashman says, you know what, if you want to take a short-term deal, why not? Come to us. Why not? All right, that's it on the Yankees. Let's talk about these Jets for a little bit. And we'll hop into the Giants rumors, and we'll give a little breakdown of Knicks post-game. 40-point performance for Karl Anthony Towns, baby. Josh Hart, 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. He ain't hurt. But yeah, the Jets moving on from Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a great decision. Obviously, as a player, would I want him on this team next year? Yeah. Would he probably be the best option out of all the quarterbacks that are available? Yeah, 100%. But at the same time, you bring back Aaron Rodgers for 2025, that's a $60 million cap hit in 2026. We're going to be paying a lot of dead money no matter what. No matter what. I think it's best, when you bring in a new GM, Darren Moogie, he doesn't want to have no flexibility in these next few off seasons after he just took over this team. Aaron Glenn, apparently, according to Diane Rossini of The Athletic, she basically said, listen, Glenn went in there, met with Aaron Rodgers with Moogie, and they said, listen, you're not going on the Pat McAfee show. Like, if you're going to be the Jets quarterback, you're not running the show anymore. You're not making demands. You're not saying, I want Nathaniel Hackett and Nathaniel Hackett only. You're not saying, bring me Devontae Adams. Bring me Allen Lazard. Bring me Randall Cobb, just like last year. No, this is our team now. We're a team. We're not Aaron Rodgers show. So, would I like Rodgers on this team next year as a player? Yeah. But there's a lot of things that come with Aaron Rodgers. And I think the biggest factor isn't even the Pat McAfee show. The biggest factor isn't him going to Egypt in training camp. It's not that, or OTAs. It's not that. The biggest factor is money. It's money. It's clear and simple. If the Jets bring back Aaron Rodgers even next year, even though they have a better chance at a winning season, do the Jets have a realistic shot at winning a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers? No. So then realistically, what's the point? If Aaron Rodgers was 35, if Aaron Rodgers had 4,000 plus yards, let's say even the same stats, if Aaron Rodgers was 35, I'd say, you know what? Yeah, let's roll the dice one more time. But with the money involved with Aaron Rodgers, it's not worth it. And I talked about it on last night's pod. I don't see the Jets designating him on June 1st. The June 1st designation would just split. It would just split the money that they owe him over 2025 and 2026, whereas they just cut ties with him before, which is what I think they're going to lean towards. You take a slap in the face for 2025. You're going to be paying a little bit more. And then in 2026, you have no ties to Aaron Rodgers cap-wise. So I think the best option for the Jets is to cut ties as soon as possible. Do not make him a June 1st designation. Just don't. Quarterback-wise, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. I would go Justin Fields. You could get Kirk Cousins on a veteran minimum. You can get a guy like Daniel Jones, who I really like on the Jets. I like Daniel Jones and Justin Fields, two young guys who want to resurrect their careers, similar to how Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, and even Baker Mayfield did. in the past few years. They're going to be motivated. They're going to want a big contract. So why not take a flyer on a cheap quarterback like a Justin Fields or like a Daniel Jones? Because Justin Fields and Daniel Jones, what can they do? They can move around. Justin Fields had over 1,100 rushing yards in 2022. He had 25 total touchdowns. Justin Fields just this past year went 4-2 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, had 10 total touchdowns with just one interception. Why not take a flyer on Justin Fields, who also played at Ohio State with Garrett Wilson? So there's a good relationship right there. You want to make Garrett Wilson happy? Go get his former college quarterback. Daniel Jones? I mean, yeah, but what did the Giants do? The Giants never got him a top receiver until this year, Malik Neighbors, and they never obviously got time to really build chemistry. So that they had a terrible offensive line, whereas the Jets sitting at number 7, they have a legitimate shot to land another great O-lineman, like a Will Campbell out of LSU. I would love Will Campbell. If Will Campbell's available at 7 and the Jets don't take him, I'll be pissed. Because then you have an O-line with 4 great young O-linemen. You'll have Will Campbell, Olu Fashanu at the tackles, Elijah Vera Tucker at the guard, and then Joe Tippmann. You just really need to find another guard. So, and maybe bring back Simpson. Why not? There's your O-line right there. There's Daniel Jones protection right there. There's Daniel Jones with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. We saw what Daniel Jones did with Saquon Barkley in 2022 when he had a great running back right next to him. He went to the playoffs, and he had a great playoff performance where he threw for over 300 yards against the Minnesota Vikings and got the Giants their first postseason win since 2012. So, and like I said before, he's going to want to prove to the NFL GMs, hey, I can still be a starter in this league. Kind of like what Geno did with the Seahawks. Kind of like what Baker did with the Bucks. What Darnold did just this past year with the Vikings. And anybody who wants Sam Darnold, it's just not happening. Sam Darnold is going to get paid $40+ million a year. Whether it's a 2-year deal, a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal, Sam Darnold is going to make a lot of money. And the Jets cutting Aaron Rodgers before June 1st will not give them a lot of cap flexibility. Cutting ties with Devontae Adams, cutting ties with Allen Lazard will give him a little bit more, but it won't be enough to bring in a guy like Sam Darnold. It just won't. It won't. So kiss that pipe dream goodbye. I would love it, but we just can't afford it. So that's where I would lean towards Justin Fields, a Daniel Jones, or even a Kirk Cousins, who was mentioned today. Kirk Cousins, I mean, he would have to sign a veteran minimum because, let's be real, he's not going back to the Falcons. He's not. Michael Penix Jr. is going to be the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons next year. But Kirk Cousins, I know what you want to say right now. Well, why would you trade? Well, not trade. Get another veteran who is coming off an Achilles injury just a year ago. Well, here's why. Kirk Cousins, he's much younger. He's 5 years younger than Aaron Rodgers. Kirk Cousins would still be able, like I said, he's going to sign that veteran minimum, so he won't cost us a lot of money. And he had 18 passing touchdowns last year. And just look at his year in 2023 before he went down. He was in 8 games. He had 16 passing touchdowns, so that's 2 passing touchdowns a game. He had 291.4 yards per game. I still think Kirk Cousins has another really good year left in him. In 2022, he threw for 4,547 yards with 29 touchdowns. So I'm not saying we're going to get that Kirk Cousins, but if we can get a Kirk Cousins that can throw for 4,000 plus yards, we can get a Kirk Cousins that can limit the turnovers. That would be great for Garrett. It would get us a winning season. I would say with Kirk Cousins, they could still be a playoff team next year. And I talked about it on last night's pod. The Jets have enough talent to be a playoff team. With Kirk Cousins, I think they really could be a playoff team, considering if they do draft an O-lineman at number 7, and they can still draft a quarterback in the second round like Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe. And you have him sit for a year behind Kirk Cousins. And then you don't designate Aaron Rodgers for that June 1st designation. Then you have a lot of flexibility in the 2026 offseason. Whether you want to, give that young QB a shot, whether it's Jordan Travis if he develops a little bit better, whether it's a Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe if they take one of them in the second round. Connor Hughes today, he said that he sees the Jets taking a quarterback in the middle rounds. We're hearing rumors that Woody Johnson is intrigued by some of these quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, very unlikely. Sitting at number 7, they would have to trade up, and I don't see the Jets trading up. But, you get a Will Campbell, then you have 4 very good young offensive linemen. 4 for 2025. You find one more, you shore up that offensive line, you add some depth there, you add some depth on the defensive side, and you bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins. I would say the ceiling for that team is a playoff appearance. Floor, I would say a winning season. And the Jets, when Aaron Glenn was hired, he basically let me know what I took away from it is they don't want to just punt for 2025. They don't want to punt. But they also don't want to punt 2026 by bringing Aaron Rodgers back and having a $60 million dead cap hit on Aaron Rodgers in 2026. Because then they'll have no cap flexibility next year. None whatsoever. So take that slap in the face this year. It was a great move to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. And you can still win. You can still win with a guy like Kirk Cousins on a veteran minimum. You can still potentially win. And I think Justin Fields has the best chance of becoming a franchise guy out of these young QBs with, guys that are going to be available. Even in the veterans, we're going to see Russell Wilson available. We're going to see Kirk Cousins available. Matthew Stafford reportedly on the trade block. Sam Darnold. He's probably obviously the franchise guy that you can sign. But Justin Fields at 25 years old, a guy who just 2 years ago had 25 total touchdowns, 1,100 rushing yards, he still has an opportunity to prove to the NFL that he can be a franchise caliber quarterback. So that's why I would say, you know what? Take the risk on a Justin Fields. Take the risk. Why not? And you still have Tyrod Taylor there. So they could just draft a quarterback. They might not even sign a quarterback. Maybe they don't get Kirk Cousins. Maybe they don't get Justin Fields. Maybe they don't get Daniel Jones. And maybe they just draft a second-round quarterback and they have him sit behind Tyrod Taylor for a few games. Or maybe the full year. I still like Tyrod Taylor. I'm not saying he's going to take this team to the playoffs, but I still like him. I think he could win us a few games. So, and just speaking of Aaron Rodgers overall, I see a lot of Jets fans, a lot of this Jets community just so upset and crying and whining, but it seems like they don't understand. They're like, oh, well, why are we punting the 2025 season? We're not bringing back Aaron Rodgers. He had 28 passing touchdowns. When's the last time a Jets quarterback had 28 passing touchdowns? Is Aaron Rodgers winning us a Super Bowl next year? No. If Aaron Rodgers comes back next year, can we have a winning season? Yes, but are we winning a Super Bowl? No, we are not. We're not. You can still build a culture. You can still build a winning culture with a guy like Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, or even Tyrod Taylor and a rookie quarterback. You can still do that. And then you will have much more flexibility next offseason when guys like Garrett Wilson, guys like Sauce Gardner, who's even due for a new contract right now, like Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, Will McDonald in a few years, Elijah Vera Tucker. These are guys that are going to be due for new contracts. And if you want to bring them back and you bring Aaron Rodgers back, you won't be able to bring half those guys back. So, and also Garrett Wilson doesn't like Aaron Rodgers. A lot of players, yes, Quentin Williams likes Aaron Rodgers. Jermaine Johnson likes Aaron Rodgers. A lot of players, Breece Hall likes Aaron Rodgers. But in my opinion, I'd rather have Garrett Wilson locked up long-term than have Aaron Rodgers for one more year, in a year where we're definitely not winning the Super Bowl. We're not. The Aaron Rodgers era is over. It's over. Do you see the Jets with Aaron Rodgers getting past even the Cincinnati Bengals, who only had 9 wins this year? Do you see the Jets with Aaron Rodgers getting past the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Denver Broncos? Like, Aaron Rodgers, as great as I want to say he was as a Jets quarterback this year, it just makes no sense to bring him back to not win a Super Bowl and to have a $60 million dead cap charge in 2026. It makes 0 sense whatsoever. You want to say we would punt 2025 without Aaron Rodgers? Well, we're punting 2026. We're probably punting 2027 and maybe even 2028 with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has not set this franchise back yet. But if you bring him back another year, then yes, he sets the franchise back officially. No doubt about it. And with Darren Moogie coming in as a brand new GM, with Aaron Glenn coming in as a brand new head coach, I can't blame them for not wanting to deal with the Aaron Rodgers show and potentially cost them their jobs. Because I don't care that you could say all you want that Aaron Rodgers, well, he cost Robert Saleh his job. He cost Joe, like for the Aaron Rodgers haters, you can say that all you want. Robert Saleh would not, he's not a good head coach. Maybe he could be down the line, but right now for the New York Jets, just this year, in the past few years, Robert Saleh was not a good head coach. He wasn't. Joe Douglas, you can make the case for, but at the same time, he has very good draft picks. But at the same time, what did we win with Joe Douglas? What did we win? And Joe Douglas was also the guy who hired Robert Saleh, who was a terrible head coach. So, bye-bye, Aaron Rodgers. It's over. After today's show, we're probably still going to talk about the Aaron Rodgers situation. But after today's pod, I'm going to say we aren't talking about Aaron Rodgers anymore. All right, Giants, Matthew Stafford, they hire his brother-in-law to be the quarterback coach. So now every Giant fan thinks that they're getting Matthew Stafford. I don't think they should get Matthew Stafford. I think it makes sense for them a little bit, only for Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, because if they don't have a winning season next year, they're probably gone. Unless they develop, a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward. But it seems like the Giants want to get what I see the Giants doing, to be honest. Even Connor Hughes said it. I see the Giants going after Shedeur Sanders in the draft and getting him at number 3 and just praying to God that he lands to them in number 3. And then maybe Russell Wilson. And then you don't have to, it's a battle between the both of them. Russell Wilson has wanted to play in New York for a long, long time. The Giants met with him last offseason. Russell Wilson, the only reason he didn't go to the Giants and the reason he went to the Steelers is because he knew he had a guaranteed starting job with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Giants were tied to Daniel Jones, and they want him to give him that opportunity to start. So that's why Russell Wilson didn't go to the Giants last offseason. So if you say, Russell Wilson, you basically know you're not what you were in the past. So even if we do get Shedeur Sanders, you'll still have an opportunity to win the job, but Shedeur Sanders will be that long-term option. So I could see the Giants having a quarterback room of Russell Wilson and Shedeur Sanders, depending on what they do with Tommy DeVito. He's a restricted free agent right now. I think, maybe you just bring him back just for entertainment-wise, for, merchandise sales and stuff like that. I could see them bringing Tommy DeVito back as just a business decision, not necessarily a football decision. But, I think the best option for the Giants is to draft Shedeur Sanders and bring in a guy like Russell Wilson. I think that'd be good. I don't think you trade for Matthew Stafford, because if the Giants fans, the Giants organization should learn anything from the New York Jets, don't go after the veteran quarterback. Because with Matthew Stafford, it probably means Cooper Kupp. And if there's one situation I'll compare that to, it's the one-time Super Bowl winner Aaron Rodgers, the one-time Super Bowl winner Matthew Stafford, going to a New York organization, bringing in their best friend wide receiver. Like, Matthew Stafford is not like Kirk Cousins. He's not like Russell Wilson. He's going to be getting paid by the New York Giants if he goes there. They're going to have to give up capital if they get Matthew Stafford. So if I'm the Giants, I just say Shedeur Sanders and Russell Wilson. And they got to try to win. Because Joe Shane, his job is on the line. Brian Daboll's job is on the line next year. Joe Shane, his draft picks have been terrible. Evan Neal, Deontay Banks, Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't lived up to the hype. Outside of Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy has fumbled a lot. I still like Tyrone Tracy. If he can limit those fumbles, I think he can be a very good running back in the NFL. But outside of Malik Neighbors, he hasn't landed a pick. He hasn't. So their jobs are on the line. They need to win. So I could see them going for Matthew Stafford just because they know they're going to be on the hot seat if they lose. So that's the only reason I could see the Giants going after Matthew Stafford. But I will warn them, as a Jets fan, bringing in, trade in draft capital for a veteran quarterback and bringing in potentially their best buddy, Cooper Kupp, or in the Jets' case, it was Devontae Adams. You're giving them more draft capital for that. And, it's a risk. It's a risk. I can tell you that right now, based off experience. So if I'm the Giants, I'm going after Kirk Cousins. I'm going after Justin Fields. I'm going after Russell Wilson. Sam Darnold, I don't think makes sense money-wise. He's not going to, Sam Darnold behind that O-line, I don't think is going to be anything. I think Sam Darnold's best option is going back to the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe the Las Vegas Raiders. But the Giants do not need Matthew Stafford. They do not. All right, let's talk about the Knicks for a little bit, and then let's wrap up the pod because it's getting late. All right. Knicks beating the Pacers tonight. Beating the Pacers. Always nice to beat the Pacers. 128-115 victory. Karl Anthony Towns, 40, 12, and 5 assists and 3 steals. He was over there on the defensive end with 8 defensive rebounds. Josh Hart, 30 points, 12 to 16 from the field, only made 1 3. Also, Karl Anthony Towns got to the free throw line a lot tonight, 9-9 from the free throw line. Josh Hart, man. Josh Hart I've been saying he's been the engine of this next team all year long, and he proved it yet again today. He was a plus 15 out there. And then another guy, Miles McBride, man, he was a plus 25 out there, 15 points off the bench in 25 minutes, 4-7 from the field, hit all 3-point shots that he took, 4 out of 4 tonight. He was great. He was great. That's the exact 6-man we need. We saw Campaign get a little bit more minutes tonight, 23 minutes. But then the big news, obviously, Knicks land, outside of this win where Karl Anthony Towns drops 40 points and Josh Hart goes 30 points, 10 rebounds, is we get Mitchell Robinson back soon. And getting Mitchell Robinson back soon is going to be huge because what this team is missing is rebounding besides Josh Hart and Karl Anthony Towns. They're missing rebounding and they are missing shot blocking. So that would be huge. And then obviously when OG Anunoby comes back, that's huge too. I don't think Precious will get as much minutes as he's been getting this year. He's been averaging a little bit over 20 minutes per game. With Mitch back, I don't really see a role for Precious. I could see a situation where Campaign actually gets more minutes now that you have Mitch back. So I'm excited to see Mitch back, man. I think he's going to add a lot to this team. I think the Knicks ceiling with Mitchell Robinson is much higher than we may realize. And also, I don't think he's going to be as prone to injuries as he was in the past, considering we have Karl Anthony Towns here. We have Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson, McCall Bridges, a great starting 5. Mitchell Robinson really only needs to be playing 15, 23 minutes a night. 15 to 23 minutes. That's what I would say that range is. He doesn't need to be playing 25-plus minutes like he was when he was a starter. He doesn't. And I also wouldn't have him start because I want Josh Hart in that starting lineup based off what he's been doing all year, based off what he did tonight. You want Josh Hart in that starting lineup. You do. So, but they also need OG Anunoby to stay healthy. We cannot be in the postseason without OG Anunoby. That's just a fact. Because we are not Saturday night, this past Saturday, when they played the Celtics, if we had OG, I would say it's a little bit closer of a game. I'm not going to say we're going to win, but I will say that it would have been a closer game. Because Josh Hart, as great as he is, he's a hard-nosed basketball player. He plays tough. He can't guard Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. But OG Anunoby can. McCall Bridges can. That's why you signed those two guys. Well, you re-signed OG Anunoby and you traded for McCall. So, they need all guys healthy. That's the key for the Knicks. They just got to stay healthy once those two guys come back. That's it. They do that, and they are undoubtedly NBA Finals contenders. The ceiling for them right now, I would say, is Eastern Conference Finals. Their ceiling with Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby healthy, I would say, is the NBA Finals. And that's crazy to think. The New York Knicks, man. They got a really good team. They got to win, just like the Mets got to do this year. They got to win. No more funny games, no more memes for the Mets. They got to win. 2025 is about kicking ass. Yankees, they want to get back to the World Series. They're the favorites right now in the AL East. Go out there, get Nolan Arenado. If Alex Bregman comes available on a short-term deal, go get Alex Bregman. If you can somehow make a trade for Brendan Donovan on the Cardinals, go trade for Brendan Donovan. They cannot roll Oswaldo Cabrera and DJ LeMahieu out there in the infield. One of those two in the infield, it's not going to pan out well. It's not. Starting rotation is great. Bullpen is great. But that lineup is questionable. I will say that. Just like the Mets, their lineup is great. Their bullpen is great. Starting rotation, questionable. So both these teams have some holes, but they still have sky-high expectations. Just like the Knicks do. The Jets and the Giants, though, they don't have any expectations. They don't. Jets and Giants are miserable. They're miserable. All right, that'll do it for today's show. Make sure you go check out my articles on fansided.com/author/jnolan. Hit a like, hit subscribe button if you're not subscribed. If you're watching on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. If you want to hop over to my YouTube page and subscribe and watch it over here sometime, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Tell your friends. Tell your friends I got a podcast too. Why not? All right. I'll see you guys. Thank you for watching, whether you're on Facebook, X, or YouTube, or you're listening on the audio version on Spotify. I appreciate each and every one of you. Love you guys. Deuces.